Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Lindsey series. This is one of the 9 districts of Lincolnshire and one of the county's most rural. It has 128 civil parishes. Let's see which one this episode's all about. Welcome back to West Lindsey, everybody. Now this might feel a bit like deja vu, because in the last episode we began at a railway line and we're doing exactly the same in this episode, and it's even the same railway line, it's just a bit further to the south, and it's another level crossing, as you can see, with a station cottage on the right. There's a signal box here as well, just out of shot to the left. You'll find these buildings and this level crossing in the parish of Wickenby. The West Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. And this video is also sponsored by Jamie's Fitness Studio, based on Low Road, Grayingham, near Curtin in Lindsey. Jamie is one busy lady. Check her out by calling 07906 749 574 or emailing hello@jamies.co.uk. Online membership is available. There's a link to her Facebook page in the description. Jamie's Fitness Studio. Get fit, get happy, get healthy. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Here's a West Lindsey village which has far more than its fair share to speak of. This is Wickenby, which is located 5 miles away from the town of Market Rasen. The name derives from the Old Norse víkinga-býr, which literally means farm or settlement of the Vikings. Well, I guess this was one of their stomping grounds. It was once part of a vast area of Lincolnshire that was owned by the Danish farmer Wraggoe, and as we start to get close to Wragby, you're going to hear that name quite a few times. At the time of Domesday, Wickenby was recorded as Wichengebi and consisted of 15 households, although it's not really grown massively since then. In true rural Lincolnshire fashion, Wickenby has remained small, extending outwards along the roads that lead to its centre, albeit pretty minimally. It comprises some 1910 acres of arable farmland, although some of the farms here do have a handful of livestock too. It once had a railway station which is now closed, and during World War II it was famous for its Bomber Command airfield, part of which is still in use. We'll be seeing both in this episode, but perhaps its quirkiest feature would be what occupies its former Methodist chapel. It's something which the film buffs out there will have a great interest in. You'll have to keep watching to find out what it is, as we explore another pretty and serene corner of West Lindsey. We begin on the northern outskirts of the village at Wickenby level crossing. If you've seen such episodes as Snelland and Bustlingthorpe, there's no need to tell you what railway line this is. Like them both, Wickenby once had a station on this line, which was operational between 1848 and 1965. The crossing here, though, is arguably more notable because it's one of a rare handful that still has hand-operated gates, and they're not even the same design. This is why the signal box, which still stands, is very much still in use. Not many trains use this line daily, but of course there needs to be someone around to move the gates. The railway line was, until World War II, the biggest change the village had seen in over 800 years. The station is now a house, and it's closed thanks to the beaching cuts. If you look closely though, you can still make out the location of the former coal and cattle sidings, which would have been nearby. Now, as impressive as this is a landmark here in Wickenby, it's not the only thing that Wickenby has got to its name. In fact, it sort of pales in comparison to something else which was very important during the war, and that is Wickenby Airfield. That's where we're going next. So now we've come to the southern outskirts of Wickenby and to the entrance of Wickenby Aerodrome. During World War II, it was the site of RAF Wickenby, which was a bomber command station. It was built in 1942. Outside the gates we have a memorial. It's a sandstone column with a bronze figure of Icarus falling from the sky. It was built in 1980. There were two squadrons that were based here. These were number 12 and 626. The memorial is also right next to a small information board that tells you all about them and delves deep into their history. However, that's not all. Part of the airfield is given over to a memorial walk. In total, there were 1,080 airmen based here that gave their lives in the war. This walk is lined on both sides by trees, each with a memorial plaque. After flying ended, the base's runways were used for explosive storage and demolition until the airfield was deactivated in 1956. And if you walk down the walk, of course, you will be on the very edge of the actual aerodrome itself. You can see from this shot there are some planes there, so obviously this is still in use for something aviation related, which is a good thing. It explains all those low-flying aircraft signs I saw on the way down here. But yeah, it's a peaceful place now. No real sort of heavy artillery in the air, is there? You know, it was all in wartime. And this memorial walk is quite something. I think it's a really nice touch to remember all the airmen and the crew and the planes and things that were lost in the war. And yeah, it's well worth coming to see all this history as it is today. It's a nice walk, it's a nice touch, like I said. Okay, now we're going to move on to the village itself, and this is not going to be a long walk, although it does have a few very interesting features, one of which is a theatre, and that is where my walk will begin. This is the Broadbent Theatre on Snarford Road. It's a former United Free Methodist chapel which was built in 1878. In 1970 it was converted into a 100-seat theatre. It was named the Broadbent Theatre in memory of Roy Broadbent, the man who designed its conversion. Now, if you know your films, you may well know his son, Jim Broadbent. Amongst other roles, he's the man who played Horace Slughorn in the Harry Potter series. He's involved with this theatre too, because he's the president of the Lindsey Rural Players, the group which own and operate it. Now, you don't get something like this in every village, do you? Snarford Road is otherwise residential, and on the corner where it meets Station Road, there's one of Wickenby's listed buildings. Originally just one house, numbers 1 to 4 Station Road is a 16th century building which dominates the bend into the village. It's definitely a sign of things to come. Well, that's certainly one of the more unusual things to turn an old church into, isn't it? Now, speaking of churches, we're heading for the current church here in Wickenby, which is just behind me. Don't know whether you can see it. I better move out of the way because there's a car coming. It's just over there. Wickenby's two other listed buildings are right next to each other. This is one of them, the late 18th century manor farmhouse, which is made of red brick. The other is its church, dedicated to St. Peter and St. Lawrence. This dates from the 12th century, although it was restored in 1868 by George Gilbert Scott, who also built its tower. Amongst its most interesting features would be its font, believed to be of Saxon origin. There are some stone heads here too, set into the east wall above its altar, one of which has been described as Palestinian in style and may have been brought here from the Crusades. By the side of the door can be seen the vestiges of a medieval sundial, and inside there's a brass in the south aisle, dedicated to Henry Milner and dated 1635. Outside the church we come to a parish notice board. Mark off Wickenby, folks, that West Lindsey list is getting ever shorter. So there are actually two parish notice boards here. There's one for the church and there's one for the village itself, which is right next to this bus stop, and that's dead opposite the church. So there's going to be a card left on both, because you never know who looks at each board, really. It might just be people who are interested in the church that look at the one over the road. In fact, thinking about it, there are three. There are three, look. There are two over here. So there's the one you've just seen, and there's two there. So they're all going to get a card anyway. Right, so where are we? So we're at the bus stop, which is kind of in the centre of the village. Now, to my right, your left as you look at it, that's the road that leads to Lissington. It's the next one in the series. I'm not going to be walking up there because it's a long straight road with not really much on it. I'm going to drive out there to finish though, so if there is anything on there, the camera will pick it up on the way towards Lissington. So we're going to head to the your right, my left, as you look at it, head this way and see what's down here. I believe, generally speaking, it's just residential now, but you never know what we're going to find. Wickenby doesn't have any shops or a post office, but it does have its own postbox at least, sited between the two parish notice boards. This is Snelland Road, which runs to the southwest, and all of the housing here can be found on the left-hand side. Now, because this is all pretty much housing now, it gives me a chance to mention something else from Wickenby's past. Long before these houses existed, there was an Iron Age settlement here. It was discovered beneath Roman deposits and was even featured on Channel 4's Time Team programme. The dig was led by archaeologist Dr. Francis Pryor. The remains they found had a very large, deep prehistoric ditch and bank, and in the process they also discovered evidence suggesting that the local Roman population were keen on recycling. Hopefully the modern population are too. They're certainly good at keeping Wickenby looking pretty, that's for sure. Let's head back to the car now and take a drive in the other direction. This is Lissington Road, where again it's pretty much the same story. Housing is confined mainly to just one side of the road, although this time, as you can see, it's on the church's side. Now, the one thing we haven't really talked about here yet is Wickenby Wood. An ancient woodland, it's close to the railway line, and it runs to 106 acres. It's owned by the Forestry Commission, and it's another of the Lincolnshire limewoods. Here's a picture of its entrance. It's a great place, apparently, to hear the nightingale. That's according to the information board that we found near the bus stop. And with that, we make our way out of the village and into Lissington. I'll see you there next week. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and this has been the Parish of Wickenby, and I'm out.